Good morning, everyone. It's Joker, and today we are back with another slime video. And Rimuru, Fate-bound Tempest, has arrived. Rimuru dressed up as Shizu. He's a very good single-target DPS because he gives himself quite a bit of buffs, which means that you can put him on almost any team and he can work as a single-target fire nuker. He just doesn't bring a lot to the table as far as support skills are concerned, which means that he will get phased out probably pretty quickly, because this game is all about protectors, and it's about supports that can go from team to team. Rimuru's a DPS, which means he's locked onto, as the nuker of a team, and if you can build supports around him, then he will look great. But this game's nukers do phase out a lot faster than supports because we have a lot of units that drop, a lot of support units that drop, and nukers are kind of here and there. So he's Fire Physical on Tempest Elite, Shizu's Will, and Octagram Demon Lord. Shizu's Will doesn't technically have a actual EX team, neither does Octagram Demon Lord. They're all like sub-slots kind of thing. He uses a Fire Sword just like the old Fire Shizu, makes sense. And then he's a single target fire physical, 490%, no additional effect on there, so he is just straight damage. His first skill is a 30% attack buff and a 100% alt damage buff, all wrapped up into a 25-point skill. That's fantastic for a nuker. That is actually kind of crazy. The attack number isn't that high, but 100% alt damage for 25 points, even that alone would have been crazy, right? But it is only for him, which is why it's only 25 points. Because, Guy is giving 80% and guaranteed crits to all physical allies. That's an 80-point skill. Summer Lumi is giving, she has the capability of going up to 100% for dark and fire allies, but it's a 55-point skill because it's, 100% for 3 people, or technically 5 people. This is only one person, which is why they can get away with giving it a pretty small cost with a high percentage. They do last for 1 turn. His second skill has the Greater Burn effect. So not normal burn, because normal burn is 20% for a number of turns. A free-to-play hero does 1 turn. Violet and Benimaru do 3 turns. It all depends on the character. But they do it 20%. Greater Burn is 30%. So while it is technically stronger, burn hasn't really been a thing since the meta after the first anniversary, and we're about to hit the 2.5 anniversary. So burn is not overly common usage as far as EX metas are concerned, which is all people really care about at this point. And you can put multiple stacks of burn on. We will use Rimuru on that old Fire 2.0 burn team. And then he also gives a stacking weakness strike buff, not only to himself, but to the rest of the team that's on the front line. And it stacks 10% forever. So you could use him as a quote-unquote support character by doing the weakness strike. But I would say that's a pretty inefficient way of bringing a support character to support a different nuker, because it's only 10%, right? These other parts of the skills mean nothing to those other characters. So I would very heavily push people away from trying to be like, oh, he's a support character. Like, yeah, you could. He's not going to be very good at it, but you certainly could. His Valor trait nerfs greens, not a big deal. His actual trait gives him extra pierce power when you have over 50% HP. It works because he is a nuker, and he is meant to be on a pierce-focused team. But apart from that, you're not going to see too much viability with him as a support slot with this trait. You're better off having Violet or Megamine because of their protection skill. But let's go ahead and get started. Okay, we're going to run him on the Tempest Elite team. We've brought Fire Shizu now because she's got that weakness strike buff, which will definitely help Rimuru out and pretty much everyone else on this team. You could bring Christmas Shizu instead and just give Rimuru the fire buff and the fire resistance down. Perfectly acceptable. You could bring somebody else instead. But now we have an alt buff and an attack buffer. We kind of eliminate the necessity of those 2 items. So because Shizu's buff lasts for 2 turns and it affects everyone, it's just it's a better buff. But then we have, Gata, Benimaru, Shuna, the full team. Alright, so he's got Violet underneath him, which means he's got turn 2 protection traits. So we're going to orb change with Gobta, and then we're going to bring both him and Shuna in. We'll take out Shizu since she's not on Tempest Elite, even though she is Fire Physical. So we'll go ahead and send this on to Traya. Now, Trainee does the Fire follow-up attacks, right? So for every orb you send, it's going to get that extra, follow-up attack. That is, oh, that's a nice hand. Fire-related. So when we apply the burn from Rimuru, not only is it going to count our fire damage that we do with Rimuru, it's going to count the follow-up attacks because they are all fire element. So let's go ahead and give a very nice example of that. We'll do the burn. We'll just do the one orb change with Betty because we only have one orb here. Perfect. And, yeah, I think that'll do it for now. So we'll go ahead and give him the EX ult immediately, which is why it's so good having turn 2 protection trait support characters. And why, Rimuru's trait is really not that great if you're going to take him somewhere else. So, EX ult for him, awesome, that's good. And we'll go ahead and send this. So, it's only going to count Rimuru's orbs, right? Because he's the only fire character. We could bring in Summer Shizu right now for Benimaru if we wanted, and that would now have 4 fire orbs that would go, plus all the follow-ups. So 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, and 6. So not fire, 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 and fire. And then all 6 of the follow-up orbs are considered fire. So that'll be 30% of whatever all this attack damage does, plus a cheeky counter. So 6,000, 3,000, and then the burn, 27,000 damage, which is 50% of all of the fire attack damage that we took, or we gave out on Milim. So the 4 orbs between Shizu and Rimuru, and then all 6 of the follow-ups. So in that aspect, it's pretty good. We did a decent chunk of her HP with, 12 orbs. It's not great, but we didn't really have any other buffs as well. We didn't have a Pierce buff, we didn't have an attack buff with a weakness strike. We were just kind of moving along as it is. So let's go ahead and Pierce buff now. And you know what? Let's go ahead and weakness strike 2, and then we'll get Rimuru out of here, and we'll bring Benimaru in. And we only have 20 points. Let's give Shuna the ult here. Perfect. And then let's get Gobta in here. That way, next hand we can get just full Tempest Elite units. So here, we're going to send Gobta orbs, which are not fire, but the follow-up attacks will be fire. So these 3 Gobta orbs don't matter, but these 3 here, 4, 8, 4,000, we do 2,900 damage, alright? Not great, but it is what it is. And Shuna's about to die, because they really, really hate her. Okay. She straight up might be dead, actually. Let's just get her out, because we're not going to get her EX ult, right? So let's just save us the trouble. Let's go ahead and target down Milim even more. And then we'll go ahead and nuke with with Rimuru, because we should have enough points to make that work. So, okay, cool, perfect. Not the greatest hand. We have no Gobta orbs, which really hurts. But we've already used the Shizu buff, so we're fine there. And we're really just showing off Rimuru's damage output. So we'll bring you in for Shizu. Boom. And then we'll put the physical buff on. We'll do the 30% attack and 100% ult damage here. And we'll put the ult damage on Milim. And we don't... Do we have enough to use the fire burn again? No, we don't. We're a little bit shy on that, unfortunately. Alright, well, it is what it is. So let's use the follow-up here. So no burn. We only have 1 stack of the weakness strike, because, you saw the hand. We could, but we couldn't. We didn't have to use the Shizu buff right there. We could have held on to it, but, it is what it is. So we'll send Shuna first, because she is going to lower physical resistance. And then we'll send Rimuru after that. And I just want to see the damage that he does. So let's turn his animation on. And then we'll send it. So Shuna, we've already seen her ult. Doesn't matter. I don't care about her damage. 61k, yeah, not great. Rimuru, though, he's going to do a little bit more than that. And by a little bit, I mean a lot. because he has the Pierce buff. He has the Weakness Strike. He's got the physical buff. He's got the alt resistance down on Millum. He's got his 30% attack buff and 100% alt. And he does almost 1 million. That's really good. That's a really, really good DPS character. And his single target follow-up does 151k because it's 20% of that alt. So, and then his own, 20% of his alt damage went to that. So that's good for a DPS character with a lot of support around him, right? He wouldn't hit that hard without Benimaru and Shizu and Shuna. He would hit okay numbers by himself, but he really depends on other people to really knock his damage up into the next tier, which for 5 turns on this, what I would consider not super strong meta, almost 1 million is good for a 104 Rimuru. So he can definitely work. Now, what's unfortunate is that this is an AoE stage, right? You saw that. Our AoE unit, Shuna, 1, is dead, and 2, didn't have all the buffs, she did 61k. Rimuru, while he did 1 million, and that is certainly enough to kill any of these characters, even at full HP, there's still 2 more, right? So this, I think, is more of an issue of Rimuru not being built for his own beatdown battle. It's great that he's a fire single target. Awesome. We needed a fire AoE to really take, because we could have done 900k to 3 targets if you had just made him an AoE character, or maybe a little bit less than that, because it would have done like maybe 875 or something, maybe somewhere around there. Still, the stage calls for an AoE character, and we don't have an AoE fire character. We could bring someone, certainly, but they're not the meta unit. So I'm a little confused as to what he's doing in this particular beatdown battle stage. And that's not a fault of him. That's a fault, I think, of whoever designed this meta was like, let's make it an AoE stage. And someone was like, but Rimuru's single target. And they said, don't worry about it. We'll deal with that later. So Rimuru is good. He's a good single target nuker. Let's put him on a different team now. Alright. We're putting him on the old fire team. Toa, free-to-play hero, Benimaru, Shizu, Rimuru, and Violet. So we've got 1, 2, 3, 4 burn units here. Violet, Hero, and Benimaru have the normal burn, which is 20% fire damage. So right here, burns a single target for 20%. This is for 3 turns, though. Both Benimaru and Violet have it for 3 turns. Hero only has it for 1 because he's a free-to-play unit. And then Rimuru has the greater burn, which is 30%. It's only good for 2 turns. So, in theory, on a perfect day, we could have 20, 40, 60, 90% burn on 1 turn. So we could do almost, regular damage just with the follow-up, just with the burn effect, if we can make that work, which might be a little difficult with this team that is sometimes a little bit strapped for protectors and points. So, but we do have, fire and fire resistance down. We do have the attack and the ult damage for him, and then Violet's here to, be a secondary DPS now because she's old and she's not an EX character, but let's try it. Alright, so thankfully the stage is built for Benimaru, because 1, you need the orb change, and 2, you need to burn him, otherwise he binds and poisons you, and that's no fun. But he also puts a crit seal on us, or a crit debuff, and while it doesn't really affect Rimuru that much, we can certainly bring him in. It would affect Violet, because she's got, her personal crit buff. So let's just go ahead and send it like this. We'll leave Violet in the back, which means we're going to be missing a little bit of protection gauge. Not a big deal. Also, we could have just brought her in because Violet's not going to be the damage dealer today. 7,300 damage. Alright, definitely higher than the other characters. 15k. The burn ends up doing 9,000. Alright, that's not great. But yeah, there's the crit debuff. Is it power or rate? It's crit rate, so Rimuru's just not going to crit at all. And not a big deal. Okay, so let's do a few things here. Let's go ahead and we'll bring Violet in now for Benny. We'll use the instant damage for funsies onesies because it'll help the burn damage. So let's do that. 17k, awesome. Also buffs the orange orb damage that we're gonna do. Let's bring Violet in for Benimaru. Let's use her burn skill. Just the burn skill right now. And that leaves enough for that. And then Yeah, we can do all that. So, yeah, why not? We'll save this hero burn and for the nuke turn, because I want to leave it as a cheap skill. And then we'll use the Pierce power buff, which only affects Violet anyways, because she's the only one giving herself Pierce. But this does help, and now we can bring Toa in, we can give ourselves 40 skill points, and that now allows us to take out Violet, because, whatever. But also bring in Hero, who's going to give 3 of these orange orbs to Rimuru, because he has highest attack stat. Boom, and now that's going to look very, very nice. Gets us his EX ult, almost gets us another Toa, and now we can kind of sit back and enjoy the fruits of our labor, because between Shizu and Rimuru, I didn't even see how much burn damage it did, but I think it did a lot. So, 93 points here. So we could do this. Oh, we're 2 points shy. Of course. You know what? We're going to come back. Okay, we are back. I put the skill points on Orange Charm on Toa, so we would ensure we had maximum points. We've got 3 stacks of burn. We'll apply the last one with Hero. So, technically, we have all 4 stacks. So we've got burn, and then greater burn, because it's 30% right here. So 20, 40, 60, 90% burn. So if Rimuru doesn't outright kill on this EX ult, which he may, the burn will definitely finish it. So you know what? We're just going to do the fire buff and then his own buff right here. And that is just enough points. So in case we don't kill, we will have 90% of this ult damage coming back onto it. So almost a second ult, essentially. So hopefully it doesn't kill. 266 and then another 240 right there. So, I mean, that's a lot of damage. He didn't die, but I mean, neither did we, and now we're going to kill him here. So, I mean, it's not that big of a deal. But, I mean, the burn can stack up. And while this is a very old team, it has an old mechanic attached to this Rimuru. It does allow you to do kind of fun things, but you need fire. Right, you need to bring a bunch of fire characters to really, really capitalize on that burn damage, because it doesn't count if you're bringing a wind unit. If you bring 1 fire and 5 and a wind and a space, it's only going to count the 1 or 2 fire orbs you send, and then your burn damage is going to do like 1,000. It's going to be as good as Despair from the Overlord meta, if not a little bit better, or worse depending. So you're really restricted to bringing a butt ton of fire units, or having the new trainee give you guaranteed follow-up attacks that are already half the damage of what your normal orbs were. So it means that the burn damage is going to be a little bit half of what it should be if you just sent 6 normal orbs. Which, if you have like a 6-hander Rimuru and the 6-hand follow-up with trainee, like that's going to do some really good damage. But if you don't, it doesn't go quite as hard as you would like it to. Like, there is no way on God's green earth that we're going to get 90% burn in that beatdown battle. We're just not. The team is not built for it. We could sure try, and it would be very janky and not run very efficiently, because none of these characters are Tempest Elite except for Benimaru, and he's orb changing oranges to greens, both colors of which we don't want on the Tempest Elite team. But you could certainly get something out of it. I don't know. The burn is odd on a meta that doesn't have other units that burn, that was focused on piercing and normal buffs and follow-up attacks. It's a cool gimmick. It's not used very efficiently with Rimuru on this Tempest Elite team. It's very efficient on this beatdown battle, or this Tempered Edge stage. Don't get me wrong. It looked very good. That's the only place, though. Okay, so thankfully, things have lined up in our favor, where Rimuru is on Shizu's will, and we do have access to the Chamber of Aspects, which has a limit to Primal Demon Shizu's will Fount of Wisdom. Well, Rimuru's on Shizu's will. He's literally in Shizu's clothing. He's also on Octagram Demon Lord, which means that we can use Visions of Coleus Lumi to give him buffs. Octagram Demon Lord, 12% attack, guaranteed synergy, plus the blues, so we can put him on a stacking team, and I said he can be a solid DPS if you put supporting characters around him. So that's what we're doing. We're bringing Blanc for the alt resistance, or the synergy resistance down, and the weakness strike, which you were not going to have. We've got Guy to give the guaranteed crits. His alt buff is redundant, though, so we don't really need to bring Guy, but we do need to bring Guy for the crits. Physical Rimuru, physical buff. Albus for the Pierce and the Pierce resistance down. Orb Changer, Orb Changer, Orb Changer, Alt Swapper, DPS. And we're going to make this work. We're going to make him look as good as possible in a type-neutral setting. Alright. So there's the EX ult for new Rimuru. Alright, cheeky counter. As long as it doesn't counter Fire Rimuru, we'll be okay. Alright, cool. And we're ready to go. Will he do enough damage to actually kill here? I don't know. I honestly, I do not know. So, let's see. 1, 2, 3, 160. We do not have enough. Alright, so unfortunate. So, let's do the physical buff plus the physical debuff. Boom, that helps Fire Rimuru. We will bring Albus in, and we will put the Pierce and the Pierce resistance on. Boom. And then we will bring Guy in, and we will give Rimuru crits, so you'll have all of the primary big-time buffs, right? And we'll put a stack of burn on because we got points for it. So now Rimuru is guaranteed synergy because of Lumi, guaranteed crits because of Guy, guaranteed Pierce because of Albus, has a 30% attack buff, a 100% alt buff right here. The 80% is outshone by the 100, so the 100 takes over. And let's see, he's up to 28,300 attack, 20% weakness strike, which doesn't matter here. He's got the trait, he's got the physical 65%, guaranteed pierce, guaranteed crit, 30% attack, weakness strike, and guaranteed synergy. So the weakness strike, again, does not matter, but you can see it does stack. His 10%, was 20% right here, because it's permanent, stacks alongside the temporary weakness strike buff that we're getting from Blanc. So, let's see how much damage we actually do. Rimuru, 668. Okay. And then we're going to do 30% of that damage plus his normal orb right here in burn damage, because we've applied it. Blanc, 142. Guy will not do that much either. 136. 18k, and then his 150% orb does 73k, and the burn, 222,000 damage. Even type disadvantage, we were still able to knock off a lot of his HP, because he can be a competent DPS character if you give him support. So that's the thing, is that if you have nobody else, and you pull for this Rimuru, and congratulations, you have the brand new EX character, what are you going to do with them? I don't know. You can't clear EX5 Tempered Edge. You can't clear this stage because it's got, very hefty restrictions. You're not going to clear EX or Inferno 3 beatdown battle, even if you have Rimuru, because it's an AoE stage, and he's a single target damage dealer. So, it's not Rimuru's fault that he's not extremely useful. It's the game's fault for A, not having enough places to efficiently use him, and B, not building his own stage to his single target specifications. If that beatdown battle was single target, this Rimuru would go ham. He would knock that thing out immediately, and it'd be a joke. But they made it AoE. Don't ask me why. He is a good character who will look better with more support, but will not look very good because all of the events he wants to be put in don't tailor to him. Not a lot of fire stages that you bring in fire units. Not a lot of stages that burn is really necessary. It can definitely win fights, because as you saw, we can go type disadvantage, and we can do a butt ton of burn damage. 222k. And that was only one stack, right? Right? Only one stack, I'm pretty sure. Maybe two, now that I think about it. Details. Still, though, it was a pretty good showing. So Rimuru is a good character, but again, I would say, like everyone else in this meta, he is a bit unnecessary at the end of the day. And I think that's just unfortunate coincidence for him. If he came out in a different meta, in a different circumstance, maybe it's a different typing, he might have a little bit more value, but again, being a very selfish DPS with little to bring to other teams, apart from being supported, it does lower his value a little bit. But that's it for me, guys. Let me know what you think about this new Rimuru. Am I being too harsh on him? I keep saying he's good. He's just unnecessary. That's my final grade. But let me know your thoughts. That's it for me. Take it easy, and I'll see you all later.